2nd, 2025. This is the Finance Committee of the City of Stoughton, and I'll call our meeting to order. Roll call, it looks like everybody's here. So we have a quorum, and I can certify that we are in compliance with open meetings law. Does not appear we have any public comment. So our next item up is, I almost said our next item up for bids. Our next item is election of Finance Committee Chair. So I will open the floor to nominations. Lisa.
I nominate Patrick Butler.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a nomination and a second for Patrick Butler. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Third time's a charm. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor? We can just, unless there's objection, we can just do the, okay, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? And I'll abstain. And the next item is election of the Finance Committee Vice Chair. And I will open the floor to nominations.
I nominate Brett Schumacher.
Second.
Okay. We have a nomination and a second for Brett Schumacher. Do we have any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstention from vote.
And one abstention. Congratulations, Brett. All right. We are just flying through. Next item, communications and presentations. Lisa, new finance director, comptroller, starts May 5th.
Yep. That's about it. I know she's online watching the meeting. I don't know if she wants to say anything. It was announced at, or passed Common Council last week at the reorg meeting. So for Ozzy who wasn't there, that's kind of just communication for you that that's happening. And yeah, we're excited to have her start.
Thank you. I don't have anything to say unless there's any questions.
Hearing none.
Hearing none. Congratulations, Lisa.
Thank you.
Next item is True by Hilton delinquent room tax.
So just to update, they did not pay by their bill that we had sent them was for penalty and interest through March 30th. They still haven't paid by the due date, which was April 14th. So we assessed another month's another month's interest. I'm having trouble today. And so just to give you guys an update that's what's going on out there. So right now it's the $5,000 penalty plus 2 months interest. So hopefully we hear something soon. Last time this happened, they didn't pay till June. So we're still kind of in that leeway time that they've typically paid somewhere between May and June.
That was going to be my question.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on that? Otherwise, we will move on to the approval of minutes from that should probably say for, let me do math, 8,
You're
2025.
Yep. Thank you for catching that.
You bet. I would take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion. Second it.
Okay.
Take a pick.
We'll have Adrian do the motion, and Brett, you are seconded.
Yep.
Any questions, edits,
Besides the date.
updates? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
I'll abstain.
Lisa abstains. Okay. Next is reports. Nicole Marie.
So we've got our first quarter reports through March now. There's a few more comments on there than we have had for the past few months. Since this is just through the 31st, a lot of things usually happen in the first few weeks of April. So I did note that some of the things we've not yet received yet, but just going down the list. In the treasurer reports, you'll find that the current negative cash for the TIDs owed to the general fund is just over $2 million. Nothing really to comment on the budget amendments or on the general fund revenues and expenditures. On the various fiscal funds reports, that's where we noted that the first quarter room tax and the revolving loan fund information has not been received yet, so for us to record that. So once that's received, we'll record that. And then the March taxi revenues are not yet showing in the shared ride service. So that only reflects 2 months instead of 3 months of activity. And then retirement payouts. Dave's is actually happening in April instead of in March, so he retired in March, but due to timing of payouts, the payout will show up in the April reports when we report on those next month in May. So that's all. Any questions?
I had a question about specifically the $2 million. Is that kind of in line with expectations?
Yes and no. I mean, we would like our TIDs to perform better so that they don't owe the general fund any monies. You can see from the list there, I think only 1 or 2 of the TIDs are actually performing where they are not owing the general fund money. That was 4 and 7. The rest have a slight or large negative position. So TID 9 has a very slight negative position. The others, like TID 8, has a large negative position. So as we see development happen with those, we'll exceed that, shift the other direction, but we need to see the development happen in order for that to really change significantly.
I guess I should have asked a clearer question. We know.
We know.
Yeah, is it kind of, it's not where we'd like it to be, but is it in line with where, given the current circumstances, we expect it to be?
Given where it is currently, that it is. I think, we haven't really taken up what Ellers presented at council on the 8th about the status of the TIDs, what action we could take with them. Some of those are kind of actionable items that are going to be in the next few years, as they mentioned, transferring funds from TID 4 to TID 5 as a donor fund. We kind of have to wait till that closes in order to do those transfers and whatnot. I think the only item that Ellers brought forward was, right now we apply an interest expense, not negative, but an interest expense to the TIDs, which kind of grows that amount that they are owing the general fund each year. I think Dave saw it as, they're borrowing money from the general fund. They need to have some sort of stake in that so that it helps them incentivize to repay back faster. Of course, it's not like a person's in control of that. It's the development that's in control of when that actually happens. So I think that's a policy decision that could be made going forward. I think that's something we can discuss, but I'll leave it there as far as any more commentary on it.
Yeah, and I would just add, we do have an internal meeting scheduled next week, which would include not only staff, but Becker and Associates. So one of the things that we did is 51 West, what is that, 10?
9.
9, that's right, it's 9. We went through and basically took all the properties, put them on a spreadsheet, and then we had a column in there, and Nicole Marie kind of took what I started and built on it. We put in the actual values. Now we have assessments. We could probably even plug in the assessed values. We took values based on sales price, so we could probably update that. So we have all the inventory of those properties in that TID, so we can see where we're at compared to where we thought we would be when we did the pro forma, when the TIF was created. That one's still a young TIF, but we feel like based on the sales price are exceeding what we had projected. We know that for sure. To what extent, we're still finding out. The wild card there is still we have that large commercial space. I would expect that would be more aggressively marketed here soon. And one of the things we want to discuss in that meeting is if we want to do that for the other TID districts and plug those numbers in so we can at least project out and forecast a little bit more. I think some of the newer ones are going to be in pretty good shape. At the end of the day, it's just going to take a few years to get there. So that's one of the exercises that we've already began, and I think there's opportunity to build on that work. And it's just a question of who's going to do it, if we're going to have Becker do it, if we're going to do it internally, or a combination thereof. And we can report that out.
Other questions?
Based on people that I know that are looking to buy into the community, I know that they are going premium on home purchases here yet. So still looking pretty good.
Yeah, the market's strong. We've had quite a few permits pulled for Lennar and for D.R. Horton recently. So if you've been out there, there's 2 Hortons that are almost completely built already. They go up pretty quickly. And hopefully, they'll sell quick. They have 72 lots, and if they can build them that fast, they can do a big chunk this year. I want to say we're already, what did they tell me the other day? I think it was close to 25 building permits already. And usually for a single family home, we have 50 for the entire year, the last 3 years. So I feel like it's early in the year, we might be ahead of pace. And then, the one multifamily is just about done, and we're still having conversations with J.T. Klein. So I don't think we're done talking to them yet as far as, moving forward with that project. So the attorneys are fine-tuning some language. And then we still have another meeting with Kettle Park West to kind of summarize the action that the council took at the last regular meeting about the potential relocation of the road and the parkland dedication so they can get them other projects started. So they're working out the fine details of the language in those agreements. So we're hoping that moves ahead as well. So I think it's going to be a pretty busy year, at least on the west side.
Have Horton and Lennar seen an acceleration in their timelines because trying to get ahead of any tariff increase?
I don't know that specifically. I haven't really met with them. I would say that I'm hearing that Horton is looking at more single-family homes than they were duplexes. Initially, they were talking all duplexes, and it seems like they're recognizing the market here is going to demand more single-family homes maybe than they anticipated, which is actually, yeah.
Imagine.
Yeah. It's a good thing for them because that's less relocation they have to do on the electrical. The water and sewer are set, and those weren't going to have to move regardless. But if they were going to do twin homes, those were originally not only platted but wired for single-family homes. So if they do more of them, there's going to be a cost savings for them as well. So I think they're pretty motivated to build them.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I could add too, one of the things these large builders do is they build, tens of thousands of homes a year. So a lot of them have like standing orders from year to year on their lumber. They can pretty well project out within reason how many they're going to build. And I'd learned that several years ago when we talked to Viridian. That was one of the things, that they have some certainty on supply and they can lock in their prices earlier. So to your point, that might be one of the strategies, but I haven't specifically talked to them about that. But certainly, they might have had their prices locked in before all this, took place.
Sorry, I was doing a bit of quick math here. Okay. Hearing no other questions, we can move on to the next item, which is what I was doing the math on. And this is the resolution to amend the 2025 capital improvement plan budget for the Lincoln, Marie, Wilson, Kensington Square, and Sidewalk Program projects and enter into agreement with Wolf Paving Company Incorporated.
So these next few, I'm going to defer to Director Hebert to explain.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. So we have a couple projects tonight. The first one is Contract 1-2025, which is Lincoln Avenue from Highway B to Creedeman, and then Wilson from Van Buren to Lincoln, and then our sidewalk program that we're trying to catch up on, and then Kensington Square concrete replacement. So this bid came in under budget. So in your resolution, you'll see in parentheses $215,421.84. That's actually a good number for those of you guys that have been in finance before. So there is actually a surplus there. The bids came in obviously favorable and within our opinion of probable cost, and we'd recommend approval to council. We do have a letter from our engineer in your packet that also states what I just told you about the bid being within the opinion of probable costs. And Wolf Paving was the lowest apparent bidder, and they are a reputable bidder, and we'd recommend approval. Any questions on those projects? We do have a breakdown of the kind of what we laid out here. I like to use color-coded sheets. It helps me to keep things
Your
straight.
signature.
Yeah.
And these are gonna, I already asked you about the Lincoln because that has direct personal impact.
Sure.
So
Yes.
these will kick off
So-
generally in June.
Yeah, so Lincoln and Wilson, because their proximity to schools, will kick off after the school year is over, and our project completion dates in the contract is August 28th or somewhere around there, but before school starts again. The sidewalk contractor in the contract language, basically they have the whole season. I think it's till October 15th. But we like them once they start, that they finish and don't leave things, remove a sidewalk panel and then leave for a month and come back. We won't allow that. But they do have some latitude to start that work in the construction season.
I hear they like donuts.
Hey, whatever it takes, right?
Any
Yeah,
questions?
the other thing is,
Yep, go ahead.
if they run behind on schedule, there is a huge incentive for them to try to get caught up, right?
Yeah, we do have liquidated damages in all these things, and throughout every one of these projects, we have milestones. They have to meet these milestones throughout the project, so we make sure that we keep them on track. So this one, obviously, on Lincoln, being by the school, there is some storm sewer installation at Gregg Trail in Lincoln. Last year, we did Gregg Trail in preparation for this storm sewer installation. We've already been in discussion with the school district, also the church, because there is going to be summer school there. And so access to the summer school is a must. And so the school district has already partnered with the church to allow access from the north off of B. And then we'll go ahead and structure our work to stay out of that area to the north of Gregg Trail until I think it's June 3rd is when summer school is out. So we'll work with all the players involved and try to keep everybody as happy as possible. July 3rd, what did I say, June 3rd? Yeah, that'd be awfully short.
That'd be awfully short.
We're going backwards. So if they can be done by June 3rd, that'd be great, though. That's not going to happen. So.
Based on this spring, can they work in wind?
Yeah, they're going to have to. It's just the wet is the problem.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve this.
I would make the motion to recommend approval to council. Second.
Okay, moved by Lisa, second by Adrian. Any questions, anything? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
That was the good news, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's all gonna work out fine.
It's all good. Oh, fine. And so the next one is R53 of 2025, another amendment to amend the CIP budgets for Van Buren, Eisenhower, and Roosevelt, and enter into agreement with Speedway Sand and Gravel, Inc. And this has a different number.
Yes, yeah, and I can explain if I may. So this is contract 2-2025, which is Van Buren Street from Roby to Creedeman, and then Eisenhower from Van Buren to Lincoln, and then Roosevelt from Van Buren to Riverview. So this project, during design, we realized that the curb and gutter was actually tilting backwards away from the road and exposing the flag of the curb to the tune of about an inch or so. And so we realized that there was not enough base material in the roadway along the curb and gutter, and it was, allowing the back of the curb to essentially sink. And so during that process, we had to pivot and turn from basically a pulverization project into a reconstruction project. So that means removing all the curb and gutter, all the sidewalk, and then basically redesign the roadway. So we took that, we went through discussions with the Public Works Committee back in January of this year and kind of talked through some different things. We decided to do a road diet, so basically bringing in the curb and gutter 6 feet, which means less asphalt, less impervious pavement, larger terraces, allows for larger trees, more snow storage, a whole host of good things that we can do with a kind of a crummy situation. With that, in the 2025 CIP budget, there was money for a second phase of Van Buren from Creedeman to Gregg Trail. What we're asking is that we basically move that project to 2026, take those funds and utilize them for this project, and then also take the surplus from contracts 1-2025 that we just talked about, move those into this project. And then we also have Jefferson Street parking lot that the design work has progressed, but we are looking to move that to 2026 or another out year to do that with 6th Street, and that could be potentially part of TIF 6? 8. TIF 8 with the RDA site. And so we have a plan where it says other funds in your packet on this sheet here. So taking these other funds, we basically can fund the project using that strategy. The bids came in actually favorable for the project within the opinion of probable cost from the engineers. We recommend approval with this strategy. Any questions on that?
So help me read the net change. It sounds like, is there actually still then, is it 75,000 for under budget for the project technically for this?
Yeah, so if we combine everything together, our net would be 78,865. Is that what you're seeing here?
Well, I'm seeing something red, 75,399.
Oh, okay, so that's the stormwater side. So there's two different sides. The kind of the orangish side is the streets side of the budget, and then the blue side is the stormwater side of the budget. So this includes 5% contingency plus engineering costs. So essentially on the street side, we're 315,889.09 in the red, and then on the stormwater side, we're 75,399 in the red. So then taking our other fund options in the chart, basically we get to zero.
Okay.
And then we have a surplus, if you want to call it that, or extra funds within the Jefferson Street parking lot that we would look to use those for other projects that we know we're going to have a shortfall on as we go through design. Right now we're looking at using that for the senior center parking lot.
Got it, thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to recommend.
Or motion to recommend, sorry.
Second?
Okay, motion by Brett, second by Adrian. Any final questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll recommend that to council. On to R54. And that is to authorizing and directing proper city officials to reject bids for the senior center roof replacement.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we went out for bid to replace the senior center roof and moving towards a metal roof that mimics the current roof structure. What is it?
Shake.
Shake. The shake. Sorry. Yeah, the cedar shake. And we had two bids. One we could not accept because they did not include their bid bond. And the one bid that we did get was over our budget and over the opinion of probable cost as well, to the tune of over $50,000. So we'd recommend rejecting the bids and going back out for bid, and reminding all bidders that they have to complete the bid packet. Everything has to be submitted, or else we cannot accept it. So our recommendation, or staff's recommendation, would be to reject the bid and go back out for bid.
Quick question for those of us who are uninitiated, what's a bid bond?
So essentially, they provide a bonding company would basically back the project in case they walked away. There'd be money available to finish the project. If they essentially don't finish it and they get in trouble with their bid bond, it affects their credit and it's not good for them long term. So it just protects us in case they walk away.
Yeah, in larger projects, we do like a letter of credit, but on these types of things, a bid bond is probably more cost effective.
And they go through their bonding company and they have to give them some earnest money and basically make sure that they're in it and they're not going to walk away on us. And if they do, the bid bond company will give us money to finish the project.
Lisa?
I'm just wondering, are you concerned about the integrity of the roof? Because we've been talking about this roof since,
Yeah.
maybe since I was
Yeah.
first elected years ago.
And that's part of the contingency that we have. So if they take the cedar shake off and the underlayment is rotten, my concern would probably be that southwest corner where the tree is, and it stays damp quite a bit. There's actually moss growing there, so moisture. So we do have some contingency. If everything comes in within bid, we do have contingency built in to replace some of that plywood underneath.
Do you think it can last another year, hopefully? Are
No, we
not
want to go
getting
right out
leaks?
for bid now. So once we reject the
okay.
bid,
Gotcha.
with your approval, we'll go right back out for bid.
Gotcha. All
And
right.
hopefully get it done this summer.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
I have a question quick. Sorry, this is Tanya.
Sure.
Is the reason the bid is KSW Construction or the other companies, are they including in a contingency for potential damage under, or are they just replacement of the roof?
It's just strictly roof replacement, that we carry the contingency. But it was, way over what our opinion of probable cost was from basically the Angus Young, who put the packet together and did the initial review of the roof. They're professionals, and they gave us an estimate of what we should be looking for, and it was, like I said, over $50,000 over their opinion of probable cost.
Okay.
Any other? Brett?
No, motion
Okay.
to recommend.
Okay, motion by Brett,
Second.
second by Lisa. Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. We will recommend to council. Next one does not have a number yet. It is a preliminary resolution declaring intent to exercise special assessment powers for 2025 street projects.
Yep, so this one's a lot less than other years, because if you remember, last year, most of the accessible items went away. So we no longer assess for sidewalks, curb and gutter. However, and some retaining walls. However, we do assess for driveway aprons, which is the approach to your driveway, and also carriage walks, which is, some people have a little piece of concrete or pavers from the back of sidewalk or front of sidewalk to the curb and gutter. So some of those are accessible, and that's what we'd be assessing for. If the apron is in disrepair and doesn't meet our spec, then we would assess for it. If it's in good condition, we will not assess for it. If there's a grade change and their apron is in good condition, but we have to take it out, the city will pay for 100% of that, but it has to meet our spec and be in good condition. So there's not as many accessible items, but the driveway aprons are still accessible, and this is procedural to allow us to start the process for assessment.
What would be defined as not meeting specs?
So if it's not concrete, if it has cracks or is in disrepair, if it's too narrow, most of the time it's either asphalts or could be pavers, or it's just it's broken up. So that's most what we see out there. Yeah, pavers is another one we had last year that we had some issues with, and the problem is those are kind of above and beyond what the standard is, and so to have the taxpayers put those back in is not fair.
All right.
I'm sorry, this will go to council on the 13th, so this doesn't go tonight.
Any other questions on that?
Make a motion to recommend approval to council.
All right, motion by Lisa. Second by Ozzy. Any final questions? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Okay, and then our 55 is, excuse me, to amend city policy regarding funding for vested sick leave payouts. This is what we talked about last meeting, I believe. Was
Yep.
it last?
It was it was
Couple-
last month at
Last
least.
month, okay.
So it was brought to the finance committee last month after Dave had left. He had written a memo and I had added onto it about, right now our sick leave for city employees is vested at 100% in the assigned fund balance. And because we've dropped below our target of 25% for unassigned fund balance, what we're looking at is to adjust the vested sick leave from 100% to 50%, which is going to free up about $613,000 from the assigned to the unassigned fund balance, and that will raise our percent of expenditures of unassigned fund balance to 29.1% instead of being 24.1 and just under that 25% target. So, any other questions about this one? Lisa?
I think one of those whereas at the very bottom may have been carried over from the Speedway sand and gravel. It looks familiar.
You're correct.
Okay. That's my
It's
only.
just the last one on the first page, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. We'll get that one struck.
That was it.
So then from a procedural standpoint, we would recommend for approval with that amendment, or with that being struck.
Correction.
Yep.
Just as a rehash for remembering on this one, what are the downsides to moving from 100% vested to 50%? What are the
So-
risks involved in it?
The risk would be that all city employees use all their sick leave in a single year, and we don't have that funding set aside. So that would take all employees who are eligible for retirement, more than just who's eligible for retirement, who's eligible for a sick leave payout, to use theirs all in a single year. That's unlikely to happen. And so by moving it from 100% to 50%, we're still covering what our anticipated expenses. We're covering it more than enough, so that $600,000 will We have a handful of retirements every year, so we're still covering our bases as a liability for those expected or anticipated retirements that we'd have in a year. When we passed the original policy in 2023, we had a large fund balance there, and so Dave saw it as advantageous to go ahead and invest 100% at the time. So the time that was when our fund balance was like at 50-ish% of expenditures, and then after that it dropped to about 40. So that was a good position for the city to be in. As we've had to use fund balance for the unassigned fund balance for various different things, we're not in that position to afford that luxury of vesting 100% any longer. So it going from 100 to 50% doesn't have many disadvantages. It will have more advantages. The other reason why we're trying to do this before May, or before our next borrowing at least, is that is something that Moody's does look at when they are doing the rating, what that unassigned fund balance looks like. And so by taking this action, we'll have made that before our next debt issuance, so they can take that into consideration, that although we dropped below that target, we've made some adjustments since then.
And then this will make the adjustment within the policy. Do we spell this out in policy? I don't remember if we did or not.
There's not a specific policy written outside of the resolutions. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And we would maintain this in
So-
perpetuity, or would we revisit this if the fund balance is healthier looking? We're not dipping into it, and revisit it maybe,
Yep.
or not.
I believe I put language in the resolution about revisiting it through the budget time, but also retaining some of the language that had previously been in there about allowing the finance director, comptroller to make the entries that are needed at the end of the year for that. So it would be reviewed at budget time if any changes can be made, and then the finance director has the power to continue to make the adjustments as needed to vest up to that 50%. So that way we don't have to come back to council at year end trying to rush that through when we're working on lots of other things.
Perfect. Thanks.
Any other questions on this? Okay, then we'll entertain a motion to recommend
Motion to recommend.
from Brett. Second.
Second.
Second by Lisa. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. We'll recommend that to council. And now we have the Chamber of Commerce. This is an update.
Yeah, so we've been passing iterations of a potential lease back and forth between the city and the Chamber of Commerce. And I think the last one that we had looked at had some red lines from the Chamber's perspective. And I know the city attorney's been making some adjustments. And I think we're overall in a pretty good place. We're trying to provide, them the space, and for up to 2 years, they've requested that we wouldn't charge them rent unless we were to extend it beyond the 2 years. They're trying to get in a position financially where they can, afford to pay rent going forward, whether it's with us or another building. And, a lot of the discussion has really just been on space, particularly during elections. So we've been trying to work on some language that finds a balance between providing them space or having them look at other options. Basically, the 3 weeks during the election period, which is typically April and November. There's a primary sometimes in February and August. Sending out the early ballots in the primary months is still fairly busy, and the clerk would like as much space and limited exposure with people just even walking through there to try to keep everything confined to an area. Once those get mailed out, the in-person traffic during the early voting period is not what it is during the general election, so I think there's some opportunity there to continue that discussion. But those are kind of the bigger picture items that we're still looking to resolve. Sarah from the chamber, was at the last council meeting. She's out of town right now, and when she gets back, we'll continue the conversation. But we wanted to give an update to the finance committee on where we are in the process. I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Rick. You're here. You've been working directly with them, but I think we're making progress.
Yeah, I think so they sent us some revisions. I think this version is red lines that I've sort of put on top of those, and just adding provisions that City Hall staff have wanted. So I guess we continue to have those conversations, but if feedback is we don't want to have a lease with the chamber, that'd be good to know right now, just so we don't continue going down this path. And I think once Sarah gets back this week, we'll try to iron out some final details.
There's just little things, like originally they had requested 2 keys, but they have 3 employees, so they're requesting a 3rd one right now. We don't think that's a big deal. We may ultimately have key fobs on the door. We have cameras in there, so we know who's coming and going anywhere anyway. So, those are fairly small requests. We wanted to make sure they understood that they would have to have their own phone system and their own internet, which I believe they might be under contract, so they would just basically inform their provider that they're moving, so they don't get charged for a new install for the fiber line that would have to be brought into the building. So we're still working through some of them little specifics, but I don't feel like it's anything that we can't overcome. We've been in the process this week of starting some initial purging and moving of file cabinets and taking some things downstairs and trying to take advantage of the time, whether this goes forward or not, to really create more efficiencies in the building. And we have things that are in places that are literally just taking up space, some records that we need to retain. Nicole Marie's been working on record retention standards, or laws, I should say.
Recommendations.
And what's that?
Recommendations.
Is that what they are?
Some pieces are law, but most of them are recommendations, how much long you expect to keep things. So we've worked with the auditors to get a listing of those.
Yeah, so we have, a fair amount of paperwork from the clerks because they are the retainers of the records. We have, feels like every piece of information ever related to the planning department. I found some stuff in the basement from 1947.
I think those are supposed to be transferred to Brett for future historical updates.
And then we'd like to give Lisa and her team an opportunity to go through the finance items before we get too carried away as far as, moving them, or if there's things that they need to be accessed. We'd like to be able to scan more items in for storage, but that takes a lot of time. And some of the items, especially blueprints, are huge. And if we need something like, for example, we needed blueprints digitized for the depot, we just took them over to the UPS store and had them do it because we don't have the equipment that can handle something that's that big. So, we continue to work through that. I think we've made a lot of progress here in the last few days, and Brett's team has offered to come over and help us with some of the heavy items, so that's really, we're grateful for that. So we're going through that, but at the same time, we want to get this lease buttoned up one way or another, and we're kind of here just trying to see what the temperature of the room is.
Lisa?
I guess because I haven't been here, I started to ask the question about the lease that y'all had suggested 200. The chamber sounded like they weren't comfortable with that. And further, they don't want to release their financials. But I guess my question is, it really is less about the $200 a month, because I know that depots cost us, the city, quite a bit. But I do know that they have talked about their membership increasing pretty significantly, and the city also increased a percentage of what the tourism dollars that were shared. So to me, there's a little bit of an optics here. It doesn't seem unreasonable to ask $200, particularly in the context if they don't want to share any of their financials. We do know that some of the money, we increased the amount of money that was shared with the chamber. So I don't feel like I can even have an opinion about it when it's sort of in a vacuum, but maybe there's some more information from previous meetings that I missed, so.
Yeah, I think the $200 was just a number that we threw in there as a placeholder. I don't recall we really had any discussion. I think it was a number that, I don't even know where it came from, Rick. Did it come from you?
I might have just been a phone call we had where we just threw out a number. It was more of a placeholder for an estimate to cover utilities or just sort of unaccountable costs, I guess, of having to
Yeah.
share the space.
And I think at that point, we were even talking about them maybe sharing a phone line and using the public Wi-Fi, but that's no longer in the cards. I think that was part of the discussion then. Sarah did send me kind of an email with some items on it within the last couple of days that didn't make it in the packet. I can certainly put that in either at the next finance or council if we move forward with it. It wasn't the full financials. They don't really like to release that to the public, much like a private business wouldn't. But it does kind of give a summary, and they are one of the things serving on the board that I know she is going to be going through and looking at their membership and how the rates are structured. So yeah, membership is up. A lot of the revenue is not only based on membership, but it's on things, the events, the golf outings, the dinners and things like that, which she's really done a nice job of growing that, but not at the point where she can pay a full amount of rent. But she can be back at a future meeting to provide more context to that, but I can certainly send out the email that I have.
Mayor, I think it's the next document.
Is it in there?
I think it's the last document.
Oh, it did make it in the packet.
There you go.
It did, thank you.
Yep.
I couldn't remember if I forwarded it to you. So this is what she sent me. If you're looking for some additional information, we can certainly do that.
Could those financials be shared in a closed session?
Look at that guy when you ask that question.
Yeah. I think if they were to be shared, they would become a public record. It's not necessarily like proprietary or like trade secrets where it would be where we wouldn't disclose it. So I think if it were shared with the city, it would become public.
Yeah, and I think pretty much what I had articulated is summarized in this email. If there's anything specific, or if you wanted to talk to Sarah personally, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to meet with you if that's something that you'd like to do.
I think what might be helpful, I support the chamber being in there. I think it would be a benefit, and but I guess just in terms of good stewards of potential taxpayer money, maybe what would be helpful is to get an idea. I tried to find it, but I ran out of time and patience. How many, what the percent was that we increased, that we were sharing with them for tourism dollars, and what that might, how much that might be, so if we'd given, I don't know, $20,000 or $100,000,
Yeah,
could they share okay, but now it's costing us $200,000? Just that, some sort of context, so we
Sure.
can.
Yeah, I think she can explain that, but basically, yeah, the chamber and the visitor services, and I think that, like the room tax, that all goes to visitor services, so that is financially a separate document from the actual chamber, and I think that maybe Sarah could probably provide a little bit more context to that and maybe more detail to that, but yeah, we did, because we raised the percent overall, I think from 8 to 10% or whatever.
8% is the max. So I think it went from like 6 to 8.
6 to 8,
Yeah.
okay. So we went from 6 to 8, and and I don't know if we increased their percentage, but just by raising it overall created more revenue. But that's revenue that goes to visitor services, which is a separate budget from the chamber, even though, they're in the same building.
And I can't remember how, now we're straying into room tax, but so like generally like the state statutes require 70% go to a tourism entity, which is the chamber in this case, and they have to spend 100% of those funds on tourism promotion and development. I don't know if like a lease would qualify as an expense for that. It's like the other 30% goes to the city as general purpose revenue, but I seem to recall the city might not be utilizing all of that for general purpose revenue. I think they might be sending more for economic development purposes, but I have to double check the statute.
Okay, I want to recognize we have 4 minutes.
So their goal is to move in by June. Obviously, they'd like to see a decision earlier than later, but certainly, we can bring it back here and or the council in that first meeting in May.
Yeah, I think that'd be
We
appropriate.
don't have to make a decision tonight, but
Yep.
understand that if we don't, more than likely, they'll want us to go to finance and council at that next meeting, but the council's already heard from them, so it's not like it's gonna be out of the blue.
Right,
Yeah, continue to pursue it, and then,
Yeah. Agreed.
we can always time sensitive that, because everyone's already gotten a look at it, so it's not like it's brand new.
All right, so beyond the future agenda items, there was one item that there was nothing in the packet associated with. It's discussion, possible action regarding lease with Stoughton Opera House Friends Association.
So I just got the lease because Candy didn't forward it to me. But we were going to bring the lease to you all. It's something that's been standard that the Friends of the Stoughton Opera House have to lease the lounge room. And so from year to year, it's been held constant at $150 per show. So we were going to bring it to you all in case there was any inkling that we should raise whatever that rate is. Otherwise, it's just a standard lease, I guess, for them to utilize that space for the lounge activities. I don't know what that is. So we can bring that back to another meeting. I think the lease was just part of the alcohol license review that it came up when they need to have a current lease on file when that process happens. I think if you right click on them, you can mute them.
I don't have the ability to mute.
I will try to.
Okay. Yeah, and I think what's gonna happen is somebody from the Opera House or the Friends of the Stoughton Opera House might wanna give testimony and make a case for leaving it, based on my conversations with them. So I think, we'd be best to have that at the next meeting if that's okay. And then, send an invite to SOFA and have one of the members of SOFA come out and present their case.
Okay, yep, agreed. On the future agenda items, any additions to that? The only thing I'd say is I'm curious, because we talked about the TID, the recommendation from Ehlers on the TID. When does that show up on there? Does it show up in here? Does that go through planning?
From Ehlers?
Yeah.
Well, I think we're gonna have our internal meeting next week, and we're hoping that when we get Lisa on board, we can sit down with her and see how she wants to move on that. Give her an opportunity without trying to overwhelm her.
Yep.
Because there's gonna be a lot going on, and we're gonna be gearing up for a borrow and a budget. So I think we'll probably get her feel for where she thinks we should go and what capacity, if we need to delegate some items, what those might be.
All right. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Brett,
Second.
second by Lisa. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.